Right, what is up guys, here on the channel here today. My name is James, to bring you guys another video. Today I'm going to be talking to you guys about the Tom Clancy franchise as a whole, what is going wrong with it and what Ubisoft need to do to fix it, and do a little bit of a retrospective as well. It's going to be one of the longer videos we've done here on the channel. We normally do sort of like short and snappy stuff, but today I thought I'd try and do something proper. I might do a little bit of a cut commentary, all of this cool shit. But yeah, basically I want to address our favourite franchise here on the channel at least. I know a lot of you guys are really passionate about the Tom Clancy franchise, whether that be Ghost Recon, whether that be the Division 2, or the Division franchise in general, Splinter Cell, whatever. Tom Clancy has played a big part in a lot of our gaming lives, so I thought it'd be interesting to sort of address its future, address the problems going forward with it, and just see what we want, or what I want Ubisoft to do with it going forward. If you do enjoy the video, do please leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy, and let's get right into it. So the first thing that we need to address when dealing with how to progress the Tom Clancy franchise going forward is we need to identify what the problems are to begin with. And there are a plethora of things that you can touch upon here, depending on what you want to actually be the heart and soul, I guess, of the Tom Clancy franchise. Are you an old school fan of the old Ghost Recon and old Splinter Cell games, where it was very much sort of tactical shooter, linear storylines, quite sneaky, all that sort of stuff, nice futuristic high-tech stuff? Or are you more of a fan of the open world stuff seen in the Division, in the more recent Ghost Recon games like Wildlands and Breakpoint? Or do you want something completely different altogether? But for me, one of the main problems that has come recently in terms of Tom Clancy is that there's been an absolute overload of games, none of which that seem that distinct from each other. So I'm going to use the past 18 months as a reference point here, but you can potentially go a little bit further back for that as well. So the most recent Tom Clancy game that I really liked was Ghost Recon Wildlands. This came out when open world games were kind of at their pinnacle, or maybe a little bit beyond the pinnacle of them, but they hadn't really started feeling boring yet. And it was something that we hadn't really seen in the Ghost Recon, at least, world. There was a wonderful map of Bolivia created, and even though there were complaints potentially about some of the gameplay being repetitive, and some people just felt it was a step too far for Ghost Recon, there were a lot of positives about the game. This channel was basically built off of that game, and it was a really fun time. I certainly really enjoyed it. Did the game have its flaws? Of course it did. It wasn't this 10 out of 10 game, but it was genuinely really, really fun. However, going forward from that, the next Ghost Recon game we obviously got was Breakpoint, and that game has been an unmitigated failure. It's lost a lot of money, and Ubisoft have really dropped the ball with it. A lot of people feel, and I would agree with this, that it feels like a DLC for Wildlands, but basically a worse overall experience. They've added in some weird RPG stuff, which is fine. Role-player games are good, I enjoy them, but it's not what you want from a Ghost Recon or Tom Clancy game, in my opinion. And quite frankly, by having so many problems with it, it was always online, that was a rubbish idea. It took away, again, the heart and soul of what a Tom Clancy game is supposed to be. And for a lot of people, that was a real issue. For me included, I haven't played it much at all. I think it's a bad game. And another issue with it as well is that it isn't even that distinct from the Division 2, which came out about, 6 months prior, if you try and sort of like extrapolate back a little bit. The Division 2, perfectly serviceable game. I'm not a massive fan of the Division as a whole, but that is more because it's not my sort of game. I never played the first Division. I just wasn't really that interested in it. Division 2 I had some fun with it, but in the end I was like, you know what, there's other games I'd rather be playing, frankly. And it just didn't quite work for me, unfortunately. And then when the Ghost Recon game felt very, very similar to it, that was a big problem. So I think whatever you want from Tom Clancy franchises as a whole, you can definitely agree that there have been some problems recently, whether that being the games themselves undelivering, or the games not feeling distinct enough to really warrant separate releases in the first place. So now that we've addressed the issues that we're having with the Tom Clancy franchise, I think we need to establish what we want to happen going forward. And the first thing that I think that really needs to happen is that the entire Tom Clancy franchise needs to go away for a little bit. There needs to be a good 6 to 12 months at least without anything even being heard of from Tom Clancy. I don't mean you have sort of 6 months between releases. I mean you need to have a solid 6 to 12 months of there being no announcements, nothing other than updating current games, which for people that have paid for those games I think is only fair, about Tom Clancy games in general. I want there to be no Tom Clancy releases over the next Christmas period. I think there needs to be a hard reset, and that needs to begin in 2021 with a new game coming out. I strongly believe that when franchises start to fall off the ball a little bit, you need to have a break from them, and you need to take a step back and think, well, what are we actually going to do with this? We saw that with Assassin's Creed, actually, and it worked really, really well. Assassin's Creed games were starting to get panned. They were being really glitchy. Games like Unity just didn't really function when they came out. And there was a lot of sort of, well, Assassin's Creed is kind of dying off. So they took a break, and then they came out with Assassin's Creed Origins, which is a wonderful, wonderful game. And people are liking Assassin's Creed again. They put another game out after that, and there's probably going to be an Assassin's Creed set in Viking times coming out at some point. And I feel like those are the sort of games that I want Ubisoft to be focusing on at the moment. Tom Clancy needs a break. When people hear, oh, there's a new Tom Clancy game coming out, they kind of get a little bit sort of like, oh, here we go again with the same old song and dance. It's going to be the same game, the same Ubisoft engine, everything. And we need to make sure that that doesn't happen with the next release, so they do need to go away for a little bit. But what should they do when they actually come back, I hear you ask? And, well, that's where I think there needs to be something interesting done. I think there needs to be a new Tom Clancy franchise. The last new franchise we got was The Division, so we've had 2 installments of that now. That hasn't really worked very well, frankly, and I don't think there should be another Division game. It just hasn't really done what Ubisoft need it to do. Like I mentioned, there has been burnout from Ghost Recon, with Wildlands being successful and a good game, even though some people who are sort of maybe perhaps more purist fans, I guess, who wanted a continuation of the Ghost Recon franchise that we've seen in the past, that's absolutely fine. If you didn't like it, that's cool. But it was a good game that a lot of people liked. However, with Breakpoint being such a failure, I think Ghost Recon is another one of the Tom Clancy subsets, I guess, that needs to go away for a bit. So I think a brand new, distinct franchise needs to come out within the Tom Clancy subgenre. What that is, potentially there are a lot of different ways you can go about this. But what I do think there needs to be is a focus on traditional Tom Clancy-esque stuff, basically. You could go into the past. You could do a sort of Secret Service mission in the Cold War. You could do one even going back into World War II. I don't really care. You could go into the future. As long as you have a tactical shooter, I think people will really like it. I'm a massive fan of more historical shooters, so I potentially prefer them to go back a little bit. That maybe wouldn't work quite as well as some people would want it to in terms of the futuristic tech that you can have, obviously. So perhaps they go into the future. I don't know, but I know it needs to be a really distinct experience from Ghost Recon, from The Division, and from my next point, which is Splinter Cell. Now, there have been videos on this channel in the recent past talking about Splinter Cell and why I don't think there's actually going to be one for a while. However, this is my own world. This is what I think should happen. And I think the Tom Clancy subset that needs to return first after the release of a brand new sort of genre within the Tom Clancy franchise is Splinter Cell. I think this would be a fantastic way of getting a load of fans back into the sort of Tom Clancy world, as it were. I feel like a lot of fans potentially feel disenfranchised from the genre and from the franchise, and I think that there needs to be an appeal. You know what? We're going to put out an old school Sam Fisher game. You can have Michael Ironside, you can have all the old school shit. Yes, there'll be new engines and all that sort of stuff because we need to update it for the new consoles and all that sort of thing. But I think that this would be a great way to say to people, you know what, you've been neglected for a while and we're going to give you exactly what you want from this. I think that would be wonderful, frankly. I've never sort of played a Splinter Cell game when it's come out. I think I've played one previously when I was sort of like 12 or something like that, but That wasn't when the game came out. It was one of the older ones. I honestly couldn't tell you. And it'd be really cool for me, just from a personal perspective, to experience a launch of a Splinter Cell game. That'd be great, and especially one that the community loves. Obviously, the last one was panned a little bit compared to the previous Splinter Cell games. It didn't have Michael Ironside voicing Sam Fisher, all that sort of stuff. But he certainly seems to be back in the fold. And quite frankly, I can't think of a better way to follow up on a new franchise inside of the Tom Clancy sort of general area than with the return of a personal favourite of many, many Tom Clancy fans and bringing back Sam Fisher for a brand new game. And now is when you bring back your placeholders, your main events, your absolute top tier franchises in the eyes of Ubisoft at least. That's when you bring back your games like Ghost Recon that have such a recognition amongst perhaps the wider gaming sphere. They probably are slightly more accessible than games like Splinter Cell and the new franchise that I'd want to come out. They can potentially be a little bit wider. They can be the ones where you try and really sell some copies. But by this point, we are now two or so years down the line, at least, if not 2.5, 3, maybe sort of E3 2022, there could be an announcement, Ghost Recon is back. And now if you think about it, people won't have had a Ghost Recon release since Breakpoint in 2019, a Christmas 2022 release for a new Ghost Recon game. That would be a really exciting time for all of us. I think that would be... there'd be a lot of hype. There'd be a lot of people going like, oh my god, I'm really happy that this is back, as opposed to, well, there's another Ghost Recon coming out. Is it going to be the same as the old stuff? Yes, it probably is. They can use the new Xbox, the new PlayStation really well to create whatever they want to with this. I'd have no problem at all with it being open world, but there needs to be a distinct difference between Wildlands, Breakpoint, and the new game. Now that can be with how they function in the actual game as a whole. They could make it linear. There could be some whole new other shit that comes out that we don't even know about yet with the new consoles. We don't know, but what we do know is that there needs to be a major upgrade from the old consoles, I guess. And that is certainly doable. Now, will this actually happen? Who knows? But that's certainly what I'd want to happen in terms of resurrecting the Tom Clancy franchise, because I do feel like people are really burnt out on it. Quick mention to the Rainbow Six series. I can't see there being a new one of them for a long time. Rainbow Six Siege is such a success. It's going to be playable on the new consoles. I don't see why they would bother making a new one when they make so much money out of it. And quite frankly, it's still a really loved game. There's no point doing anything with that. Like I mentioned, I don't think there should be another Division game. I just don't think it's worked as a franchise. And yeah, that's what I'm feeling with Tom Clancy. I'd be really interested to know what you guys want to happen with the franchise. Obviously, everyone watching this is a big fan of Tom Clancy games. What do you want to happen? What do you think will happen? Yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this video. It's been slightly different to what we normally do, but I thought I'd take a more in-depth look at stuff as opposed to just bringing you news or whatever. I really hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you so much for the support on the most recent video. Thousands of views on that. I hadn't had that in a while, so thank you so much for that. Yeah, I've really enjoyed making this. I hope you guys have enjoyed watching. If you made it this far, bloody well done. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.